I am so excited to be launching the New Testament, where we're sharing modern-day testimonies and stories of discipleship. My first guest is such an honor to have her here. Her name is Dondretta Strong. Welcome, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Valante, for having me here. It's an honor to be your guest today. I really appreciate it.
And Dondretta is the author of a new book, I've Got Something to Say. And it is a moving piece. I picked up the book to review it, to prepare for the interview. And I didn't really have time to read it all the way at the time, but I couldn't put it down. The story just drew me in, and it just made me more interested, and it was inspiring. So that's why I wanted to share Dondretta's story with you today.
Thank you.
So let's talk about your title.
Sure.
I've Got Something to Say. When I looked at it and I read it from the perspective of a writer, it reads like you really had something to say. There is a sense of urgency in the book. Is that something that is intentional, or is it just the way that it came out?
Very much so intentional, Valante. When I thought of the title, I've Got Something to Say, basically it was just so fitting for what I have to say. And I didn't secondary think the title. Once the title hit, I knew it was for the book. I believe that in our culture overall, here in the States and even in the African American culture, we don't talk about the types of instances of the types of things that I have spoken of in the book. We don't talk about the way it used to be, the way we came up, the way we grew up, what our experiences were. We talk about legacy, and we talk about leaving a legacy to our children and our children's children, but a lot of times we don't go into explaining what the intangible of the legacy was all about.
Exactly.
And when I say that, I mean, we don't talk about what it cost us, what our experiences were, what our lacks were. I go into a lot of details on how I grew up and trying to find myself, trying to find identity, trying to find out where I fit in society. And I think with I've Got Something to Say, it goes into that place where that girl is, that first young child is, and in that girl and in that preteen, and it just opens up a whole area where people can see and where people can recognize and where people can say, I experienced that, or my mom experienced it, or someone close to me experienced that. And they never really talked about it publicly. They never talked about it as a bridge for someone else to cross over,
Exactly.
Or a segue, or a place where others could build off of. It's been more of the tangible. I worked hard to get to where I am. You need to work hard as well. Or I worked smart to get where I am. You need to do the same thing. And as a means of that, I'm going to leave you something to help you get there. But we never get to the really crust, I'm finding, of our story, and our story that entails on how we truly got to be where we are.
That is so important, which is why it drew me in. Because to look at you, you look like success. You speak of success. And to hear your story for a young woman makes it attainable. Because I've heard young women speak and say, I look at you, you're intimidating. I could never do what you did. Or they may assume for some reason that, she was just born with it. It was easy for her. I have it more difficult than she had it. And when you share your story and you open up, there are young people out there who can say, well, if she did that, I can do that. And that's why I appreciate you sharing that story. You spoke about us not sharing. And I know for me, even growing up, it's, you mind your own business and you keep what's in your house. You keep it in your house.
Exactly.
And we don't share those stories. Share with us the impact of sharing that story. It's a two-part question, the impact on you. How did it feel to get that out? You had something to say. So how did that feel getting that out? And what has been the response?
Well, getting the story out was surreal. I felt as if I was living the story over again. I could vividly see myself growing up in a very rural town outside of Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Go Roll Tides. Okay, needless to say. And I could see myself on the farm. I could see myself being that girl who had to work very, very hard from one day to the other. I could see myself being forced into a role that I really didn't know I was being forced into. You know, to me, the type of work I did was more of an adult's job, carrying the extra water from the pump that had to be primed, using that water for washing, using that water, when I say washing dishes, washing clothes, washing, cleaning the house, washing whatever needed to be cleaned. And there were several trips centered around that, picking cotton in the cotton field. Back in the 70s, you would think we were away from that, but not quite where I came from. I was still doing that and having to deal with the backlash that came from, peers that were out of that, didn't have to do that every day. They had inside plumbing. They had clothes. They didn't have to have hand-me-down clothes. They didn't have to worry about, having a full meal on the table. Now, kid you not, we were privy to certain things, but we had to work hard to get those within the sharecropping piece, within, the food that we were provided with. When I say we, meaning that there was a family, there was a family. My mom was there. My youngest sibling was there. My oldest sibling was there. And my oldest niece was also a part of the family. And at that time, there was no father figure in the house, We had to do the best we could do. And my mom did what she could do. And after a while, she was getting older. And we had to make some choices. When I say we, meaning that all of us had to get together and talk and say, hey, what are we going to do now? And so she decided that, I need to go ahead. I need to move ahead and go to Chicago. You all need to stay here, work with what I send back, and then I'll send for you and your youngest sister, Dondretta, when the school term is over. And by now I'm 12 and a half or so, and getting ready to walk into age 13. So it's just like, wow, I'm left here with, and what do I do? And, mom is not here to give instructions, and I'm not quite sure, where my sister is right now. My oldest sister is with her thought process because she had her struggles,
Right.
We all had our struggles, be it identity, be it with substance abuse, be it whatever. We just didn't have a place where we really connected as a family. We lived in the same house, but we weren't connecting at the time.
In your story, you just mentioned it again. You said several times, my mom did the best that she could. That was a common theme, recurring theme in your book. And I picked up on that because it indicated a level of appreciation for your mom instead of being resentful.
Right.
I had to go through this and it was hard. But when you say that, there is a sense of appreciation that I really respect. So when you say that your mom did the best that she could, and the way that you were able to step up and do what she said, and questions like, how did your mom know that you had this? Where did it come from? How do you know what to do and understand, instead of sinking into self-pity? Mama gone, she left me down here. How did you do that?
I think just even in the way that I was wired as a child, I really can't even explain why I was wired the way that I was. I could see the strive in my mother. I could see the determination to make it work. And I can say that that's part of why I'm who I am today. She was determined to make sure I was cared for. My youngest sister was cared for. And at the same time, her concern was there for the others that were in the house. And she wanted the best always for all of us. She never once said anything to make me think that she resented me being there.
That's wonderful.
But I will say, back in the day, it wasn't easy for a mother to say, "I love you," in my house and where I came up. But it was more of, if I provide for you, if I do this, don't you know that I, and we just didn't, use that big LOVE word. But needless to say, I could see that to be love, not at that moment, but later in life, I'm like, I can see now that she really did love me. And I think that, seeing her work and work so diligent, helped me to move forward even after she left, because in my own way, I became the leader. I was determined to make sure we ate, even if it was the berries on the vines or the pecans that fell from the tree or the figs that fell from the tree, whatever fell. And being on the farm, you could find some food at the time. You could always find something to eat. You could find a sandwich, a bologna sandwich here, there. I mean, we had stuff. When I say stuff, not the type of stuff that we would say, you would walk into a house where, the table has plentiful food laid out, but we had enough just to get by. Wow. If that makes sense. And we made it happen. We made it happen.
You kind of stepped into the next question a little bit as you were talking, how that impacted who you are today. And more specifically, you seem to have taken on a responsibility, a ministry, a concern for humanity. What role or what connection do you see from your childhood to you just owning you stepped up when you were a child and you're still doing it. You just kind of step up and step in. So kind of describe that connection or even when you knew that, okay, this is my role in life.
Well, I think even the tough-skinnedness that I realized was in me, anywhere from age 8 to 10, attending a funeral. We had a cousin pass in our family, and I was real young, and I loved the way she played the piano. And I was like, wow, that's so awesome. And I'll never forget when she passed, my mom told me of the passing, and she's like, really, you should stay and not go to the funeral. I'm like, please let me go. Please let me go. And I went. My mom said, don't look into the casket. I said, okay, I won't. And okay, of course, she's on duty. She's ushering. And I'm up and I'm looking and I'm just staring. And I walk away after staring for a length of time. That night, I couldn't sleep. I mean, I was having these pictures of her floating in the air, all types of pictures, imaginary thoughts of this happening and that. And my mom, I didn't tell her, but she knew I couldn't sleep, right? We had this very small wooden house, 3 rooms. You stood in the middle, you could see everything around you. Needless to say, she said, you looked in that casket, didn't you? I said, I did. And she began to talk to me about life after death. And she began to tell me where my cousin was. And she began to talk to me about fear. And she told me that there was no need for. And then she began to explain to me why. And she talked about a relationship. And she talked about that relationship with Jesus Christ. She explained that to me in her own way. And that comforted me, because to this day, I believe that to be one of the most intimate conversations that we had at that age.
Oh, wow.
And I've continued to do funerals, go to funerals, and guess what? They don't bother me. And I can provide a level of comfort to others that I can't explain come from. It's not from a book necessarily. And of course, I do have some of the working book knowledge that goes along with providing comfort and compassion and to those that suffer through grief. But needless to say, she tremendously impacted my life with that. And just that piece grew me. It grew me. And as I continued on in life, I began to really see things different, not just based off of that, but it was just this eye or this niche for. Leaving Alabama at age almost 13 was a total culture shock for me. when I exit the Greyhound bus, I'll never forget, and I can actually retreat back to the actual drive-in. I'll never forget. I was so excited about, leaving, meaning leaving and coming to be with my mom, but yet I resented the fact I had to leave all my friends and, to you as a 13 or 12 and a half year old.
It's everything.
That's everything. And you're excited, about going yet, but then you're like, I really, really want to stay here. I really don't want to go, but you want to go with your mom. And, I had all of those mixed feelings and those mixed struggles about when my mom sent for us. She has told my oldest sister, now you make sure you prepare them with some fried chicken, put it in the foil paper, and then my sister told me, my oldest sister told my youngest sister and I, don't you open that chicken until you get halfway there. And so we opened the chicken. We didn't know what halfway was because we'd never been on a Greyhound bus before. We'd never been outside of where we live. Aliceville, Tuscaloosa was the farthest, and maybe sometimes Birmingham. We didn't know what halfway was, and we didn't even know if we were on the right bus. But needless to say, we trusted that we were, and we figured we were halfway. We ate chicken, and needless to say, we got to Illinois. My next to the oldest sister greeted us, and I'm telling you, just stepping off the bus, the stench of sewage just really made me cringe. I'd never smelled anything like that. I mean, have you, in the South where I grew up, we had the outhouse, but we kept it clean. We had to. That was a part of our chore. Needless to say, I was just shocked with the big buildings. I was shocked with all of the people, the rudeness, in my opinion, because I'm waiting for a greeting committee almost to come off the bus because we cheer when buses came to town where we came from.
Really?
Hey, how you doing? Absolutely. And not a smile. People are looking under-eyed, looking interesting. I was so afraid. And my youngest sister was right on my heel. She was just as afraid. I continued to build confidence because someone needed that. Someone trusted me for that. It was my youngest sister. And my mom also trusted me. She said, I'm counting on you now. She would always say, I'm counting on you, Dondretta. I'm like, okay, I can do it. I'm going to do it. I'm a big girl, and I did it. And I just, it was just, it was a journey, getting from there, from the South to the North, and just experiencing what I experienced in the length of time to make that transition.
Wow. Was there a time when you felt like, okay, this is too much pressure? Everybody's counting on me. I can't do this. I can't deliver. It's too much. If there was a time like that, and if so, how did you push past that and keep going?
There were nights I cried as a kid, and I think that to be true with, I guess, any kid, even if the kid is pouting about something they can't get their way with, or, because mom said, eat your vegetables on the plate, and you're like, I don't want to do it. But this was more of a cry to, are you there? Do you see me? Do you see our family? Are you listening? Did you forget about us? Or are we too far off the globe for you to see us? So I felt like at one point that God really had forgotten about us, or maybe even abandoned us to a point. But when the call came and the money came for us to come and be with mom, then I was like, you didn't forget about us, and then to be on a big bus, with cushion seats on it, I'm like, you definitely didn't forget about us, because we were riding in tractors and, all type of old stuff down there, if we had a ride. Other times we would just walk, and we walked wherever we walked. If it was summertime, we walked bare feet. If it was wintertime, we would wear old shoes. We only wore good shoes, or I only wore, I'll talk about me, good shoes when I went to church. You had your patent leathers on then. I love patent leathers, by the way, to this day. You had your patent leathers on to go to church, and they shine. And you had your roll down socks, and you looked good. You had your Sunday go to best on. But needless to say, I can go back to that, some of those days, and say, even in the tears, There's a scripture that's fitting to that. He bottles up all of your tears. And
Yes.
and I believe that there's going to be a discussion when I meet him about those tears.
Oh,
And I'm grateful for those tears because those tears helped me continue to move forward. They inspired me and and caused me to attest to the fact that, you know, you're not forgotten. You know, he hears
that's
you.
right.
Even when you think he's not listening, he's listening. He never sleeps, neither does he slumber, according to scripture. And my story leading up to him hearing was me getting off that bus and being able to get something to eat. I got off.
Yeah.
I remember my next oldest sister who picked us up in this old Ford Buick, I believe it was, brownish or so. And my sister, and she had her hair all dyed, and she was, you know, she's a tough cookie, and she was just about business, you know, chop, chop, chop. So we get in the car, and she's like, "Come on in. You act like y'all don't know who I am. I'm your sister. Come on in here." So we get in the car, and I'm looking. My two nephews are there. You know, one knee high, standing on the back of the seat, and the other one kind of gazing us all over. And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I don't even know who they are." They say they are relatives. I don't know who they are. So my sister says to me, "Are you hungry?" And she looks at my sister, my youngest sister, to say the same. My next to the oldest sister who's driving. I won't use their name because the names that, by the way, that are in the book are not the actual names of the individuals. So just for the sake of, I'll say them in order of.
Okay.
He says, "Are you all hungry?" I said, "Yes, I am." And she said, "Well, let's go to White Castle's." And I said, "Oh." So I'm looking like, what's White Castle? No idea what White Castle. Never had White Castle. Never. And I'm thinking medieval. I'm thinking like, whoa, we cannot afford to eat that. I'm thinking all of that. I'm like, no, we have no money. I'm saying to myself, all in mind, we have no money. And I'm looking at my youngest sister like, oh my gosh, we can't do this. And so my sister is driving. My next oldest sister is driving. She's like, okay. So we pull up, and she pulls up to this blue and white thing that looks like a castle. I'm like, wow, okay. And then there's a drive-through. I've never been in a drive-through before, never. So she's like, "Give me like a large amount of White Castles and hamburgers and all of that." I'm like, oh my gosh, there's a lot of hamburgers. Who's gonna pay for all of that? I didn't know they were mini burgers, right? Because I was used to my mom taking that ground beef that we had from the farm we got,
burgers.
and these burgers were big. She chopped the onions up in there, and she seasoned the patties with pepper and salt and whatever else she put in there. And I'm telling you, those things went over in the skillet and came out after those onions were cut up over it and sauteed. And oh my goodness gracious, right?
Yes,
that's a burger.
Yes.
On light bread. We didn't have the buns for it, so we had light bread, and it was great. And mine, I love with mayonnaise. So I would put the mayonnaise on instead of the ketchup and mustard. But needless to say, I had White Castle that night, and that was the very last time I had White Castles, because I got to where my sister lived, and I exited to the bathroom right after that. White Castle and me never got along after that.
I was going to ask you, do you still eat White Castle?
I do not eat White Castle. No.
Wow.